Hi, it's Norman Kochnick here. I've got 3 updates this morning about the upcoming test tomorrow. The first one is predominantly around the hotel and some changes in the positive around the Sofitel Brisbane CentralHotel. The second point is around what the Australian newspapers are saying and some of the Twitter coverage from Australians on the test. And then thirdly, we'll look at Nathan Lyon somewhat, as he is obviously going to about to have his 100th test, which is quite a milestone. Some of the reaction in the press about that as well, which is not as positive as it may well should be. The first point I wanted to bring up was around the actual hotel itself. Now, the hotel, that is the Sofitel Brisbane Central, had certain restrictions on it. There was a very unnecessary amount of control around room service and the like, but the BCCI have stepped in and spoken to Cricket Australia, who then urged the hotel to change their ways somewhat, and it's been particularly good. There's been an intervention, and despite the fact there's some respite for the Indian boys, the Indian players. The pool access has been allowed now, so they're allowed to go to the pool, which is an incredibly important part of any battle. I mean, post-Sydney and pre-Brisbane, the need to go to the pool, be able to allow their muscles to rejuvenate is extremely important. So it's little wonder they wanted to have pool access, which is a godsend, and it's an outdoor area. If not indoor, it doesn't matter. The fact is that the pool that in particular I'll be using will be outdoors, and that's great for their rehab pre and post the match, or during the match as well. They've also been able to use the lift, which was an incredible restriction. I couldn't believe they were not able to use the lift. They have access to that now, and also to the gym, so they can work out in the gym. So previously, they had no room service, no proper services around their places. Obviously, they had no lift, no gym, and no pool. But now, at least, there's been enough common sense prevailed, and they've been allowed to have both pool, gym, and lift access, so as to perform somewhat and function somewhat normally. And there's some concessions. And apparently housekeeping will also start today. So, hallelujah, there's been some common sense prevail. Although it is a bit disturbing where the Sofitel Brisbane Central actually is located. Not very far away is the Hotel Grand Chancellor, which is subject to a lot of scrutiny based on the UK strain of the coronavirus that actually is believed to be within people that are actually staying at that hotel quarantine. That is the Hotel Grand Chancellor up the road from the Sofitel Brisbane Central. Bit concerning because it's quite a deadly strain of the virus, but mind you, Brisbane generally has had virtually no cases. It's been particularly benign there, and in general it's pretty good, but they're very close to that hotel, which is a concern. And they're still allowing 50% crowds. Now in Sydney they allowed 25%, 10,000, but in Brisbane they're allowing half, which for 50%. So I think that's, I'm not sure exactly, probably around the 15 to 20,000 mark. That's more than the Sydney crowd, but that's a bit unusual. We may see that change, who knows, but at this point it isn't changing. It's going to be 50%. And that may be perceived to be risky, but yeah, we'll wait and see how that pans out. Now, in the Australian papers, and I have a number of the papers right here, everything from the Australian, which is a renowned paper, we can see the Australian, the Sydney Morning Herald, there's also the Courier Mail, Herald Sun. There's several papers that are out there, and they've been pretty prominent around Australia, and in fact, they've actually had some very unusual commentary around, which the pylon is waiting to happen. They're calling it the pylon. That was the likes of Peter Lawler. He calls it the pylon because everybody's piling on the bandwagon apparently to actually review what Steve Smith and Tim Payne have done right and wrong. Steve Smith, of course, the scratch gate, I'll call it, the actual pitch where the crease marks were scratched or ruined, and Tim Payne's blow up with the umpire and general misdemeanours of the match, leading to him keeping back quite badly and leadership not as good. So not only has there been a number of Indian press outlets, including myself, who've been saying that, which is quite damning, and it's true though, what we're hearing, those two people should have been held account. The other thing is, of course, Michael Vaughan, Darren Gough have both come out quite strongly about what Steve Smith has done and claimed it to be a form of cheating. Michael Vaughan retracted somewhat and said it was, well, not cheating, but still unacceptable and unexplained. And that's probably more the correct way of looking at it, but still, Darren Gough came out quite easily and said it was a cheating effort. The bit about the discussion around Well, Nathan Lyon's 100th test. Obviously, he can chill now. They're claiming that he's always been a bit on edge about whether he had a position in the side. Well, he's actually played now 99 tests and about to play his 100th test. So I think he's in a pretty good situation to be comfortably able to say that he's in the team and playing well. There's a form of cultural review that's been undertaken by the heads of Cricket Australia around how the skipper must be cool in the Gabba cauldron. That's the term they've used. So Andrew Wu named it that way. And of course, that is referring to Tim Paine not losing his cool, keeping his leadership in check, being more focused on the match, not reacting to certain decisions under the pressure cooker of what he would call in the Gabba cauldron. In fact, the Gabba is the heat will be on that test. It's the deciding test series of this 4-test series. India depleted side, but I don't know whether it's necessarily completely depleted. One other point that came up this morning was the ruling out of Pukovski, the opening batter, the partners Warner. He's been ruled out now, which should lead to Marcus Harris getting a chance to be his partner in that opening position, which will mean two left-handers, not a left-hand right-hand combination, which is interesting. But I believe Marcus Harris deservedly should come in, as he scored double centuries early in the year like Pukovski. So Pukovski shoulder has not recovered sufficiently and he is out of the 4th test, which is disappointing for Pukovski, being his potentially 2nd test. So that's rather unfortunate. Ian Healy came out in the press, the former Australian keeper Ian Healy, and talked about Paine was cranky and desperate, but will rebound on the Gabba. Now, cranky and desperate, interesting way of terming it. Maybe that is exactly how Tim Paine was, and he'll rebound. Well, let's see whether he does. In fact, the pressure's really on Tim Paine, not just his keeping, but also his position in the team, to be very honest. So yeah, that whole aspect of the cultural side and judgment side of Tim Paine, his decision making as leader will be under question, but there's been spoken about cooling it and being more relaxed about his captaincy and perhaps returning to the way that Justin Langer and the like would see him to be. So that's the main points of this morning. The Indian side, Bure Majunda, who's a colleague of mine from Sports Today, we talked about this ourselves, but the reality is that Bumrah certainly is out. Vihari certainly looks like he's out. Agarwal, there's some doubt now. I thought he was out, but he may still be a chance of getting in the side. If that's the case, Prithvi Shaw, who may be in the side, he's no longer going to be. Agarwal will keep his position. So the batting order will probably fit Agarwal in there lower down the order, probably after or before punt. Otherwise, the team will be staying the same. Of course, we've talked about Natarajan versus Shardul and Kuldeep versus Washington Sundar. It may well be both Kuldeep and Washington Sundar are out and Agarwal's in, and the decision between Natarajan and the likes of Shardul is made for the 11th. So that's my update. This is Norman Kochnick here on Eyes on Cricket. Please stay tuned for the latest information. Norman Kochnick.